This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to task or challenge you. Now, if you're here as a maker, you're already unleashing your creativity. But there's a lot of people who feel like themselves are not creative. It's somebody else's job to be creative. It's somebody else's job to be the inventors. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to challenge you to think differently about your own creativity and unleash to yourselves your own ability to create. So let's get started. So what's really driving this whole transition to innovation, the whole push towards increasingly more desires for new things, to go invent and to go create? In reality, there's a thing called what we refer to as the creative economy. There's this fundamental shift from the information and knowledge economy. And the fact is that there's this transition that's happening on an accelerated basis. Think about it. If you think about just the stock market, back in the 70s, 80% of the stock market value was tied into assets of inventory and machines. Today, 80% of the assets of corporations are ideas, inventions, trade secrets. That is the new economic means for growth in the economy. The theme for here at the Makers Fair is the Remake America. It is about individual inventors. It's about the ability to create something that spurs the economy. Now here's probably my most controversial statement that I'm going to make, which is that knowledge is a commodity. Any skill that you've learned, if you've gone to school, you've got a basic skill, that same skill can be taught anywhere. Think about it. The equivalent of the National Merit Honor students in China, their equivalent to the National Merit Honor students in China, is more than the total number of students in the US. And in fact, it's predicted that China will have more English-speaking people in the next 10 years than there are English-speaking people in the US. So we won't even have control of our English. The fact of the matter is whatever I can teach through a traditional teaching method, it can be taught anywhere. There's lots of great universities and programs outside the US that can teach the exact same skills, and therefore there's going to be people in other parts of the world who will do that work cheaper than you. The fact is that we are all naturally creative beings. We may not think of ourselves as being creative, but we are creative beings. And kids are a perfect example, right? Think about, if you've had children, how many different toys can a child create out of a used toilet paper roll? Right? We've all seen it. The kids get the toilet paper roll, they're running around, it's a gun, it's a periscope, whatever. They're going to turn anything into something creative. The reality, though, is that the educational system, in many cases, beats that creativity out of people. You go to a kindergarten class, ask how many of them are going to be inventors, how many of them are going to be artists. Every kid raises their hand. Right? Now, go ask that exact same question for the first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way up to high school. Now you go into high school and you say, how many kids are going to be artists, musicians, inventors? You might get one hand. So out of that entire time period, we basically have taught our kids how to conform, how to fit in, and how to drive towards what is accepted from the standpoint of what is chosen as be successful. Now for those of us here at Makers Fair, we're nonconformists, right? You go out here and you look at what we've got out here in Makers Fair. You go look in the halls. That's the perfect example of being a nonconformist. And that's what we need. We need more of this out there. The other is suspending disbelief. This is probably the biggest challenge that I have at my job day to day, and that I see people in other corporations have is kind of the negative thinking towards new ideas. So we've seen this all. It's not a new concept, not enough return on investment. That's great for the financial people. You're on the wrong. We've got to ignore the negative thinking. It's about our own personal passion. The way that I uncover people with really great ideas in HP is I identify what I call innovation champions. These are the people who stand under my desk with their hair on fire. They are probably some of the most obnoxious people I've ever met, but they're the ones who've got the passion for the idea. They're the ones that are driving and thinking beyond just kind of the norm and have the wacky, crazy ideas. So, I'm going to give you the secret formula, right? You go out, there's probably 20, 25 books all on innovation. Innovation's the new buzzword. Everybody wants to drop the word innovation in what they're doing. And everybody wants to make it seem so hard. You got to have a gift from God to be able to do innovation. I'm going to give you the secret formula. In no more than 10 minutes. And if you follow the formula, you'll get it. You will be able to drive change, both not only personal innovation, but also career success and in the business. So first up is FIRE. So what does FIRE stand for? First up is focus. Right? You want to come up with something new. People are frustrated from the standpoint of being able to come up with something new. People wait for the serendipity moment. Trip and fall in the bathtub, get hit in the head, whatever. The best ideas come from having a focus. What is the area of innovation that you're going to drive to? It's not serendipity from the standpoint of having a purpose. Purposeful innovation typically will generate much better results. Next is ideation. How do you come up with the ideas? Do you do brainstorming? Do you do whack on the side of the head? All of those tools work great. What you find, though, is that by asking better questions, you get better ideas. This whole focus is about, it is asking the simple questions, right? You sit around and someone comes, in my case, at my job, someone comes to me and says, Phil, come up with a new product. Well, that's a stupid question, right? What's the purpose of the product? What is it we're really trying to do? So in our case, we actually have a whole series of questions that we've come up with that force you to get beyond the obvious. For instance, what is it that our customers hate about the experience of buying our product? And how do I innovate now around that? So by asking better questions, you get better ideas. The other is ranking. How many here have done a brainstorming session with a group of people, right? You get the 10 best and brightest people, right? Someone says, well, I'll write all the ideas down, and someone scribes it on a piece of paper. Someone says, I'll type it up and I'll send it around. Then what happens? Nothing. We actually expect nothing to happen, right? The whole driver here is that if you rank the ideas, if you prioritize the best ideas, you can focus the effort. Now the question is how do you do the ranking? Now, in the 10 minutes that I promised you to give you the secret formula, I can't give you all the tools. But at the end, I'll tell you how to get the full information so you can actually apply the ranking process that we actually use. And then last but not least is execution. Lots of ideas. People come up with lots of great ideas. But it's ideas plus execution that equals innovations. And being a maker is about execution. It's about creating something that you show. It's about creating something that you show somebody else how you did it. It's about revealing the secrets of how you put it all together. So it all comes down to execution. Now, FIRE by itself isn't enough. This is basic skills. So it's focus, ideation, ranking, and execution. What's missing? What I refer to as PO. So it's fire plus PO. So what does PO stand for? First up is perspective. So what's the perspective? You got to change perspective. We tend to get caught in our ruts. We get caught in our standard mode of thinking. So here's an example. So what's half of 13? 6.5, right? That's what we're taught in school. That's what we're taught to give the answer on an exam. But it's not the only answer, right? Could be 6 or 7. Could be 1 and 3 if I split the number. It could be 13 if I split it, if I had written the word 13 out. If it's Roman numeral, it's 11 and 2. If you split the Roman numeral horizontally, it's Roman numeral 8 and 8. The challenge being is people automatically assume the meaning of half. And this is the challenge when you want to change your perspective. When you want to look at a problem differently, is you have to get out of the assumptions. You have to avoid thinking of what that assumption is from the standpoint of the answer. Because really it's about getting out of the way, getting out of that rut, right? We've been taught in school, we've been taught in our jobs, we've been doing the same things the same way over and over and over again. And the key here is that being an innovator is just not about solving problems. It's about solving problems nobody else sees. It's about uncovering what it is that they have not been aware of. So what's the O portion? The O portion is observation, right? You have to have an observation skills to understand what are some of the problems that you can solve. So the objective being is how do you uncover the unspoken needs and wants of the customer? Now I'm sad to say that whenever historically we've gone to talk to customers and said what product it is you want, right? We don't quite get the best ideas. Customers typically, for all industries, are not always the best source of ideas because they don't understand what's possible. They don't understand what could be made to solve the problem that they're trying to solve, or they may not even see that they have a problem. The one example I have is when microwave ovens came out, right? When microwave ovens first came out when I was a child, my mom didn't want one. She didn't understand what the benefit was. She wasn't the one standing around saying, you know something, I want someone to invent a microwave oven. But once the microwave was out and she saw the benefit, she immediately knew that she had the problem, which was time. It solved the problem. But it wasn't like there was a whole bunch of, mothers standing around going, I need a microwave oven. Someone go invent the microwave oven. So again, the objective here is how do you uncover, how do you get into a customer's head, or how do you get into a user's head and understand the unspoken needs and the unspoken wants? And the way to do it is by observation, by observing, and not by reading market research reports or reaching studies. So this is my own personal example. Spend 1 or 2 weekends a month out in retail, watching customers, interviewing customers, watching them go through the selection process. And it's by this observation, understanding what their unspoken needs and unspoken wants. Let me give you an example. And my wife hates this because I always drag her along so she stands next to me so I don't look like some creepy guy following people around retail. And one of the things to uncover is the fact is that men and women buy technology differently, right? Guys, we buy a piece of technology, doesn't work. What do? We beat it into submission. It's an ego thing. We're not going to let the technology win, right? We'll call our buddies, we'll flash the ROM, we'll turn it on its side, we'll figure out you shake it twice and lean it and it works. We'll do whatever it takes to figure it out. Women, on the other hand, have what we refer to as the 3-strike rule. First time it doesn't work, it's annoyance. Second time it doesn't work, really upset. Third time it doesn't work, it's gone. It's in the garage, it's back to the store, they don't care. It's gone, right? And so companies that get it understand that by aiming your products at women, you raise the bar of acceptance. The same applies not just in our industry, but a wide range of industries, from the standpoint of understanding who has the higher bar for adoption for the better products. This gets back into this whole issue of how do you observe? You can't do it by focus groups. You can't do it by reading the newspaper. You got to get out. You got to interact. It's like here at Makers Faire, right? You know, part of my objective here is to go find a half a dozen makers who are inventing things that could be of value to HP, right? So at HP, we run a process to help small inventors and individual makers to get connected with HP. So there's lots of you out there that probably have some great ideas. They've got some technology. You're a startup. You've got something that you think that HP could leverage given our size, our scale, our reach of our products. So we run a process called TEP, Technology Evaluation Process. So any inventor, any maker who's got an idea, who wants to engage with HP, it's real simple. You send an email to TEP, T-E-P, at HP.com. Real simple. Now, that team does report to me, and they are probably going to shoot me on Monday because I've given out the email address here at Makers Faire. But our objective is that we can't invent everything. We don't know all the possibilities, even ourselves, within inside of HP. We need the individual inventors. We need the makers. One interesting statistic about small businesses and individual inventors. When you look at the top 2% of all patents, and these are the patents that are the most referred to patents in the industry, the top 2%, where do they come from? It is 8 times more likely that the top 2% of patents come from an individual inventor or a small business. Not HP, not our IBM, not AT&T Bell Labs, not Roche Medical or any of the big guys that have got big R&D budgets. The top ideas, the top patents come from individual makers and small and medium-sized businesses. And that's what's going to drive the economic growth going forward for the economy. So again, PO becoming increasingly important. Perspective, your ability to look at a problem in a unique and different way, and observation, your ability to look at the problem, understand the customer, and give them a solution that meets their needs. This gets down to the point that ideas are the new gold, the new oil, the new diamonds. They are the natural resource. Individuals, the ability for you to be able to be creative in your job, in your school, in your work, or in your home is going to be the direct path for you towards success from the standpoint of avoiding the downslide of the market from the standpoint of the knowledge economy. The knowledge economy is going away. It is the creative economy. Look, we're here at Makers Faire. This is the proof point of the creative economy emerging. Could you have thought of this existing 10 years ago? You think about it now, given the timing, given what's going on, this is purposeful from the standpoint of what's happening in the economy today. And I'm passionate about the fact that this creative economy is going to require for all of us to change. We change our educational systems, we change the way we work, we change the way as an employee we interact with our businesses, because it's us as an individual, our ability to come up and create new ideas. So, for those of you who aren't familiar, this is the actual HP garage over on Edison Avenue in Palo Alto. And actually I was contemplating this over the last couple days, and I was thinking about, if you think back to the ultimate startup garage business being HP, had Maker Faire been around when Bill and Dave were around, they would have been here. They would have been in a booth, they would have been showing off what it is they had created to get the feedback. At HP, we actually have a process that we call Next Bench. If you're designing something, and keep in mind, we have 60,000 engineers, not managers, not supervisors, 60,000 engineers inside of HP whose sole job every day is to invent the future. The way they validate their ideas, they invent something and they show it to the engineer next to them in the next bench. And based on that feedback, they know whether or not that idea is going to be successful. That's really the purpose of Makers Faire. We are really experiencing Next Bench from the standpoint of we're showing what we're doing. We show what we create. We show what we've done from the standpoint of what we have created. Now this is the actual inside of the garage. This is the proverbial garage startup. When you think about, what Bill and Dave did, you see the Craftsman drill press. That was the first and only asset that HP had when the corporation was incorporated back in the late 30s. So for all of you who are doing the work in the garage, who are coming up with something new, Bill and Dave started off in a garage and a drill press. So this should just be an encouragement to every maker here that there is a way. There is the history of being able to start from where you're at and to be able to get to things such as something like the garage. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up. So thank you very much.